Well, folks, welcome again to Prophetic Perspective with Lamb and Lion Ministries. We're here with Jeff Kenley at the Pre-Trib Conference in Dallas, Texas. Jeff is a long-standing friend of our ministry and really one of our heroes. You are one of the prophecy pros, so you and Todd Hampson connected together, and yet you have your own ministry as well, and you are very active in all the prophetic circles and very insightful. So we're just going to go right at it with all the things that have happened just this last fall, a change of administration in early 2025. How do you see that impacting the prophetic timeline? Some people think it's going to take a pause or accelerate. What do you see happening prophetically in the year or period to come?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think, first of all, we need to celebrate good things when they come our way. This has been a good election for Christianity, for a president being pro-Israel. I think it's a good thing that we have a president who wants to strengthen our country instead of weaken it. So politically, I think it's a very good thing. Spiritually, I think what we saw the last time Donald Trump was elected is that the church sort of breathed a sigh of relief. I think he'll take it from here on, and we kind of let the government, we let that pro-Israel, pro-Christian, bent sort of take the lead. And we forgot that we're supposed to take the lead as the church, as the bride of Christ. We're the pillar and the support of the truth, Paul said. So prophetically speaking, I don't think it's going to accelerate anything because God has his prefixed times on the return of Christ, and the events prophetically I think are prescripted in the Bible. I think Trump will basically allow Christians to have more of an open door in some areas. And so for that reason, prophetically, we could reach out to people and be more evangelistic, during this time. So I think it's a great opportunity for us.
Great opportunity. You don't think the Lord sits in heaven and says, okay, now let me see how I can tweak my plans according to election outcome in America or anywhere else, huh?
Well, one of the interesting side effects of the election is that we read that there's a 22% increase in people buying Bibles. It's weird how the election created a spiritual interest. Why do you think that's so?
Yeah, it's kind of, I think, a domino effect sometimes because as Christians and as Americans, we are influenced by things that happen in culture, things that happen in the political world, whether we like it or not. Some are conscious, some are unconscious. So I think just the fact that the world saw that there was sort of a victory on the right and on morality in some areas, that I think the culture just said, wait a minute, maybe there is something to this strength behind these numbers that elected this president. So it's no surprise that there's an increase in Bible sales. The real question is, will those people read those Bibles?
Yeah, like 9/11, remember when that day people just hit the snooze button?
Yeah. We need to be staying alert, and actually I would dare say, even as Bible teachers, we need to focus on what the Word of God says instead of going right to the newspaper. Start with Scripture, start with prophecy. On that note, Jeff, what do you see as being perhaps the greatest sign that we witness, not just in the last number of years, but ongoing today, that we are living in the end times?
Yeah, I always say that Israel is the Rosetta Stone of Bible prophecy. She's the timepiece of prophecy as well. And so what happens in Israel really is a concentric effects to the whole world, I think. I think globalism is another huge sign that's out there right now that maybe is being put on pause, maybe a little bit with Trump being elected. But Israel continues to be in the news. We, of course, know from the book of Zechariah that Israel is going to be the center, and Jerusalem really the center of everything. So isn't it interesting that just that small little piece of real estate is really controlling geopolitics in a lot of ways? So continue to look to Israel.
What is Israel's then next step? Because a lot of people are seeing the wars that have been affecting Israel as they fight Hamas and the Hezbollah and, of course, Iran threat, and now Syria, this strange overtaking of Syria. What is Israel's future next in prophecy?
I think a couple things. I think the Israeli government wants peace. The Israeli government doesn't want to go and occupy and take over and conquer lands. And they're a secular government. They're not a spirit-filled government, but they want peace. So I think we're going to see overtures towards peace, but a continued defense of their national land, of their people itself. And I think we're going to also see an ebb and flow in the peace and war process. There's going to be, I think, more skirmishes. There's going to be more effects from perhaps Iran, maybe Turkey. Of course, we know Iran, Russia, and Turkey have already come together and said, hey, what do we do about this Israeli problem type thing? So I think we're going to see more of an ebb and flow. There could be more overtures towards peace as we get closer to Trump getting into office, that type of thing. He's made some pretty bold claims about what he's going to do. So we'll see what happens. But I think that from a prophetic standpoint, we're going to continue to see war in Israel. We're going to continue to see efforts towards peace, and that's all going to continue to boil, I think, until time of Antichrist.
Yeah, time of the Antichrist. I think there's also perhaps a reprieve in a short term, a kind of a calm between the storms. We're hoping for a little bit of shalom in Israel. I hope to take 2 trips to Israel this year, and so perhaps the threat immediate from Hamas and Hezbollah will decline. Obviously, we don't know what's going to happen in Syria.
Yeah, absolutely. And we were scheduled to leave for Israel on October the 8th, and 2023. Of course, you know what happened on the 7th. And someone asked me yesterday, is it safe to travel, in Israel? So, it's kind of, touch and go right now. But yeah, I'm with you. I hope there is a sort of a protective peace where people can still take trips to the Holy Land, that type of thing. Of course, you've got that threat of Syria to the north. It's now come down with the Assad regime. Who knows what the ripple effects will be on that. But again, that's one of the things we need to keep our finger on the pulse and see what happens.
Finger on the pulse. Speaking of finger on the pulse, you have your finger on the pulse of so many things, Jeff. I mean, you and Todd, as the prophecy pros, utilize all sorts of technology, as do we, to share the gospel. But we've seen just an explosion, the acceleration of technology with AI and all the other things. How do you see that playing into both good as we propagate the gospel and also a means of evil, even to the point that the Antichrist will use some of these tools to create his one world government?
Absolutely. I think that technology and what we're using right now is the modern Roman road. This is the path upon which we spread the gospel primarily. And you can reach hundreds of thousands of people, whereas, in your own church, your own ministry, you may only reach a handful. So I think it is a great tool. As far as the Antichrist is concerned and the end times and prophetic, I think that Antichrist will use a digital economy to bring in the mark of the beast. I think he'll definitely use technology. Obviously, technology, social media is a manipulative tool that people are using right now to help control the masses in many different ways. So it makes no surprise to me that Antichrist would use that to both deceive, to delude, and to control people in the future.
One of the technology we saw is with that healthcare CEO getting shot, how they used facial recognition and tracked him on cameras all over New York and all. Eventually he was arrested, but recognition technology played into capturing him. Do you think the Chinese social credit score will eventually be a worldwide phenomenon?
That's a great question. I think in some ways the Antichrist will do everything he can to control people. I think if he just gets a hold of their pocketbook with the digital economy, that may be enough. And through that, he can enact some of these other things, maybe like the social credit system that he's done. But you know what? This is the thing is that we live in this day where we are being tracked everywhere we go. If you've got a phone, you're being tracked right now. So the sense of personal privacy really is continuing to erode. I think with Antichrist and a global regime coming in, that's going to erode completely in people's lives.
Well, we know that you have been involved in a number of book projects, but your latest is The End of the World According to Jesus of Nazareth. Tell us a little bit about that book.
Yeah, this is an exciting book. I went to Israel when you could go there and sat on the Mount of Olives and just envisioned, what Christ must have seen, what he was thinking, and reading out of Matthew 24 and 25. So it's basically a deep dive into the Olivet Discourse, which was Jesus' last public teaching there on the end times. And you get to see the end times through the Jewish eyes of Jesus Christ. So it's a very exciting project.
Well, how can people get that book? And if they want to check out your ministry and get to hear all your amazing preaching and teaching and all, how do they do that?
Yeah, check it out on Amazon.com. In fact, the book rose to number 74 out of 32 million books here just recently. So it's selling like hotcakes. So check it out. And then JeffKinley.com is my website. I'd love to connect with you there.
Excellent. Well, folks, we hope that you'll check out Jeff's materials. We hope that you have hope for the future. We've talked about some very serious topics, but we know that Jesus Christ is going to return. He's going to set up his kingdom, and the saints, those who are saved, will rule and reign with him. There's a glorious future ahead, so put your trust in Jesus Christ.